to 10, how excited are you for this fight?
I'm so excited. I mean, this is an unbelievable card from top to bottom. So many great fights. Obviously, you saw Richardson Hitchens up there. I was loving it. I wanted it to carry on. You know, Baumgardner's in a great fight. The main event's going to be a thriller. Great fights for Ramla Ali, Sky Nicholson. You know, you got Yanquiel Rivera, you got Harley Medeiros, you got Aaron Aponte as well. It's a great night of action on Saturday.
It's almost impossible to say, but is this fight more significant for Amanda as opposed to the Katie Taylor fight?
You know what? I looked at Errol-Cruz up there. I think she's ice cold. And I'm a bit worried for Amanda Serrano in this fight. And actually, as much as I want Taylor Serrano 2 to happen, Errol-Cruz is our fighter. So I'm gunning for an Errol-Cruz victory on Saturday night and a big upset, and I think it's going to be a toe-to-toe war.
Eddie, with the situation with Croke Park, does it make more sense maybe if Cruz did win to do that in the Free Arena and then look maybe in September?
Look, I woke up this morning to national news in Ireland. You know, they're talking about it on the mainstream media, and make one thing clear. You know, there's some very clever wording around from their side saying that the rental is only a little bit more expensive than Wembley. It's not the rental, it's the costs required that they require us to implement to stage the fight there. I'm not having a go at them. I'm just saying for what the fighters want to make and what I want to pay them in the fight, it's not possible. So we'll carry on those conversations. There's been a lot of people reaching out today, but it's all irrelevant. That fight's not signed yet. And ultimately, until we see what happens on Saturday night, then we'll look at the future.
Is there still a possibility though that it does go in Croke Park, or are you saying categorically?
I think, look, at this stage, May 20th is Katie Taylor's next fight day. We run out of time. So we've made our moves to go to the Free Arena, but there has been national uproar, and we'll see what happens over the next few days.
I know Beterbiev was great this past weekend, or last weekend I should say. Do you think he's still the same exact fighter, or he's 38 now? Do you think he's slowing down a little bit?
No, I think he's the same exact fighter. You know, people say that Beterbiev is slow. People say that his footwork's not great. I actually disagree. I think he's fast. I think his footwork is unbelievable. I think he's very clever. I think he breaks you down. I just think that Bivol beats him.
Eddie, Francis Ngannou, you spoke yesterday on the MMA Hour. You are now potentially exploring an option. Want to speak with his team and maybe bring him on board?
No, I was just saying it for the MMA Hour, to be honest with you. I spoke to Francis Ngannou. He's a fine gentleman. Would love to work with him. I told him that you have to navigate this choppy sea of boxing, and we would love to look at an Anthony Joshua fight. He's got the Tyson Fury fight as well. Ultimately, AJ's ambition is to become world heavyweight champion again. That doesn't involve Francis Ngannou, but if there isn't an opportunity to fight for the world heavyweight title, we would be willing to explore that this summer. It's a mega fight. Obviously, it's a fight that would create huge attention worldwide. But first things first for Anthony Joshua, April 1st, O2 Arena, press conference next week.
Away from AJ, do you not maybe look at him as an opponent first things first, like a Derek Chisora?
No, I think Francis Ngannou will want to and should want to move into the biggest fight possible. And there's only two of them, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. They're the biggest fights out there for him. Maybe Deontay Wilder. Look, Dillian Whyte would take that fight, but I think he's going to look to maximise his position, make as much money as possible, and he wants the biggest fights out there.
Is there a struggle with that if, or most people will say when he loses, if he goes straight into a Tyson Fury or an AJ,
I think
he's only really got one shot?
No, I think if you lose from there, you come back, you can potentially rebuild, but this is his opportunity. And from speaking to him, I think that's what he wants to do.
What do you think of Francis' skills overall, just the striking ability?
I think at the end of the day, he's not going to be able to compete with the skills of a boxer, but one thing he can do is punch. He's very heavy-handed, so he has to fight a style that he has a chance, like a Fury fight is very awkward for him. He could be messed around, and I don't think that's the right style for him. An AJ fight, a Wilder fight, a Dillian Whyte fight, where people are prepared to trade and can get hit by heavy shots, it makes it more compelling.
And if you change your opinion, you are making history in the female boxing?
In my opinion, yes. I've been making history in female boxing for a long time. We're doing it again on Saturday night. We're not here to tick boxes. We're not here just to look good by putting female boxing on. Female boxing is here by its own ability and its own demand. We'll be sold out in here on Saturday night. We just sold out the big room for Taylor Serrano. These are great fights, great champions, and we'll be investing heavily in women's boxing moving
Eddie,
forward.
we saw Frank Warren announce Joyce-Zhang today. Obviously, Zhang, somebody you work with.
Yeah.
Talking about making that fight, how easy or difficult was it?
Yeah, it was, again, a great relationship with George Warren. They wanted to make that fight. Zhang had a situation with us where we had matching rights on his fights moving forward. I spoke to George Warren. Zhang wanted to make that fight. I was happy with the offer that was made to Zhang. Me and George got the final bits over the line. I think it's a really good fight.
This seems to be, for Zhang at least, a much more of a
a win-win scenario for him. If he wins, he beats somebody in Joyce, who everybody sees as the top 5 heavyweight, and cements himself back in there, whereas Joyce, not necessarily the same, but where does Zhang go if he's successful?
I mean, he's in a great position. Look, he's at the back end of his career, but he can really punch. I mean, I think everybody, including Zhang, is going to struggle with the work rate of Joe Joyce, and Joe Joyce will overrun Zhang, but he can really punch with the backhand, and Joe Joyce will be open as always to get hit flush on the chin. It's just, people talk about how good Joe Joyce's chin is. He's never really fought a massive puncher other than potentially Daniel Dubois, that didn't really hit him on the chin, strangely, in that fight. So I think he's a massive favourite against Zhang, but Zhang can really punch with the backhand, and if he times him onto one, I think he'll be interesting. But obviously Joe is, with his style and against a much older man, he's a big favourite in that fight.
The man he last fought, Filip Hrgovic, what's the latest with Filip?
He's been asked to have an interim world title fight against Andi Ruiz. We'd like to make that fight. Obviously Ruiz is looking at the Wilder fight as well. We've spoken to Tom Brown, there's some back and forths. I don't think Andi Ruiz will take the fight against Filip Hrgovic, but that's what's been ordered and we're exploring that.
Edgar Berlanga, I spoke to him and he did say to me that he's meeting without payment today. Do you fancy your chances around that one, and who can you see him?
Yeah, look, I think Edgar Berlanga is a fighter that everybody wants. You know, us, PBC, he obviously was with ESPN, Golden Boy. I think we've got a great plan for Edgar Berlanga. We can headline him, we can continue his rise, we continue his popularity, and ultimately we can deliver him the Canelo Alvarez fight, which is, he needs to prove against world-class opposition that he's in a position to fight Canelo Alvarez. But it's Mexico against Puerto Rico. It's a massive fight, but he still has to have those fights, and we'll be happy to give him those fights before we look at Canelo Alvarez in May 2024.
Can he go in and start headlining?
Absolutely. He's done huge gates here before. He's a big star. In the right fights, Edgar Berlanga is a headline attraction for sure.
In your opinion, Spence is officially moving up, supposedly moving up to 154 to fight Thurman. Do you think he will end up coming back down to 47, or you think it's just like...
No, I think he's been 147 for a long time. I think he's very tight at weight, and when you look at the mileage on Errol Spence through the accident, through the eye operation and stuff like that, it's just going to be harder for him to start making weight. I don't know him personally, so I can't tell you, but I remember seeing him in Sheffield when he made 47, which was years ago, and I'm surprised he's still there. Respect to him and the way that obviously he makes that weight, but I see him moving up, and I guess 154 is his future.
What weight class is that going to be?
Look,
168 or something?
Canelo would like that fight at 175 because he feels that's where he lost before. But Bivol wants legacy, and if he wants legacy and belts and can make 168 safely, which they say he can, then maybe we can make that fight at 68 to provide an undisputed opportunity for Bivol. But if you ask Canelo Alvarez, he would say probably 175 because that's where I lost. I don't want people to think that I've brought him down. This is not Canelo Alvarez saying bring him down to 168. This is just a way to maybe make the fight to give Bivol more opportunity at legacy.
Kell Brook has come out today and admitted, obviously, the video taking cocaine was himself, and he apologised to his family and friends. Just your views and opinions on that, and what we can do as a support to help fighters post-boxing.
Yeah, I don't really talk about fighters' personal life, but Kell Brook is a fighter that walks away from the sport and has a big hole in his life when you leave boxing or you leave something that you love. And boxing has been Kell Brook's life for years and years and years. And you see that when that buzz leaves you, you can put yourself in a difficult place mentally. Kell Brook is someone we have a huge history with. One thing I'll tell you about Kell Brook is he's a good person with a huge heart, and we should all support him. And his family should and will support him, of course. Boxing should support him, and I'm sure that he'll be back on the horse. And like I said, he's a good man, and he's always had a pure heart. He loves the sport, and listen, maybe you'll see him return to the sport. But most of all, we hope he's happy.
Canelo's always been a great fighter, like maybe 15 years now. But a couple people are saying that he seems to be losing a step, not as great as he used to be. Did you see this?
No, I think he's a tremendous. Look, he's been fighting with an injury for the last couple of fights. I don't think he's been at his best. But look at his fights. He fought Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Bivol, Canelo Alvarez, and Gennady Golovkin. That's his fault. Like, people say, he's slipping a little bit. No, he's just fighting the very best of the best, and he was carrying an injury as well.
32-26 pay-per-view price point for Mayweather against Serrano-Cruz in the UK. Your thoughts?
No, speechless.
Joyce-Zhang maybe clash with Sheffield. How will that affect your viewing numbers?
You know, you never want a clash, but ultimately you're going to see it. You've got a lot of promoters out there staging fights, and you know, for us, we want to make sure we fill up Sheffield Arena for Dalton Smith.
What's the latest with Canelo and Ryder?
We're negotiating that fight with both parties. That fight will take place in America or Mexico, and hopefully we can close it off over the next week.
Eddie, as someone who's worked with Saudi Arabia to awaiting news on Fury-Usyk, it seems like it's going to be April. Why do you think that there's been a delay on that?
Because the demands of the fighters, obviously coming off the back of coming through Ramadan, sort of keeps that March date out, and they'd want it through the back of that. I'm not sure whether it will happen in April. Maybe it'll be later, but I hope it happens. It's good to have an undisputed heavyweight championship, and Saudi are really the only ones that can pay that type of money for that fight.
Do you think we see it next?
Yes, but you never know.
Eddie, you're a fan of the UFC and you're a fan of Dana White. So what do you make of the slap fighting?
I'm a big fan of the UFC. I'm a big fan of the UFC business. I'm a big fan of what Dana White has done in the mixed martial arts business. I do not like the slap league. I'm not going to lie to you. I cannot believe what I'm watching. I cannot believe it's allowed. I cannot believe that we want our kids to see people striking people without being defended. Everything, boxing's different. Boxing teaches you as a kid to protect yourself, to have respect. We want to promote safety in the sport. This is really sort of just unadulterated violence. And I know that people seem to want to watch stuff like that and broadcasters want to hit numbers. But for me, this is something where someone should step in and say, look at the footage here. This is not good for anyone. So as much as I respect those guys, I have to be honest and say, not for me.
Why do you think Dana ventured into
I don't know. It's a strange one. But, he's a revolutionary. So who knows?
Have you learned on your new Australian heavyweight that you signed yesterday?
Justis Huni, fantastic fighter. It's a massive signing for us in Australia. Look at our Australian roster right now. Stevie Spark, Liam Paro, Justis Huni, Ebony Bridges, Sky Nicholson. You've got Brock Jarvis, Dempsey McKean. You've got so many great fighters in our Australian roster right now, and more coming in Australia. But Justis Huni is a world-class heavyweight that can go on and really achieve in the division.
What's on Okolie leaving Shane McGuigan?
I didn't know he had, but I heard he had completely, just bad advice.
That's
For bad.
What's next for him?
We're moving forward with Joshua Buatsi. We sent him a contract for his latest fight. It should be announced in the next couple of weeks.
Matching rights for him?
Thank you. We gotta go.
Matching rights for him if he looks to go elsewhere?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've had Josh from the amateurs and looking forward to working with him in the future.